Welcome to Deep Look, Ultiworld's weekly radio show about the current state of Ultimate. I'm the host and the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me, Keith Rayner, Ultiworld senior editor, on this Tuesday, November 14th. Keith, we're about a week away from Thanksgiving. Exciting. Getting into the holiday spirit. How do you feel about Christmas stuff being up now? I'm starting to see it.
Yeah, I think it was like a week ago, maybe two, that I saw somebody, it was like right after Halloween, I guess, a TikTok where somebody was like hiding from something fearfully, and it was people playing All I Want for Christmas Is You. So that's your sign that the early Christmasers are out. You know, I think I used to be more annoyed by it, but now I kind of just like, Christmas is like the holiday season, the winter holiday season is like, oh, this is such a big thing. Like, let people celebrate. It's fine. Like, it gets rolled up with Thanksgiving anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I have a strict no Christmas music until December 1st. Like, I don't listen to it. But as soon as December 1st hits, I'm all in. You know, I'm listening to I like the choral Christmas music playlist on Spotify. You know, I'll listen to the pop song, all that. But nothing until December. As far as like companies, you know, putting up Christmas decorations, I get that because at this point, Black Friday starts now. You know, like
I was just going to ask you about this.
Like every year for like the last decade, Black Friday has moved earlier and earlier and earlier, right? It used to be like midnight on Friday, and then it was, but there's like early bird Thanksgiving night specials. And then it's like, now it's like Black Friday is November 1st.
It's like a month long. It's so gross.
It's pretty gross.
Is wild. I mean, I'm pretty sure I told the story of actually, I actually like went and stood in line one Black Friday, like at the store, first one in to try and get the deal, and like we're a long way from those days.
I've never done that.
It was as much for the experience as it was for the product, and it was quite an experience. I mean, I ended up like journaling basically the whole story of the evening. It was pretty wild stuff.
Well, I will say, I do, when I want to buy something for a gift or for myself, a lot of times I'll be like, I'm going to put this on a list, and then I'm going to check in November and see what's going on with the price. Because a lot of times you can just get stuff that you want at 20 to 50% off. And so just wait and then get it now.
I have heard that like some places may be manufacturing lower quality versions of their product to sell at this discounted rate.
I have heard
so
this.
You may not get, you know, you get the big screen TV or whatever that you were looking for. Might not quite be as good as the one you thought you were getting.
You gotta know what model you want, because they
exactly,
like if you just buy the Walmart special, you know, the $99 42-inch TV, it's not gonna be good. I don't even know if that's like the right price anymore. The TVs are so cheap now, it's crazy. You can get like an amazing television for $250.
Yeah, the economy around that space is strange.
Anyhow, we are not going to debate gravy being Keith's favorite Thanksgiving food today.
Although my family's planning our Thanksgiving menu. If you have any ideas you want to contribute, Charlie.
Well, what kind of contributions are you looking for?
Well, I was trying to figure out what to make my contribution. You know, the turkey's taken care of, so it's really about thinking about the side dishes.
Sides.
And, yeah.
Here's my top comments on Thanksgiving sides.
But
most things
take into account the like ease of actually making them, and people
sure.
this is what should I come and make at Thanksgiving?
Understood. Okay, so these are general principles. Most Thanksgiving food is brown and heavy, right? Gravy, potato, stuffing, even turkey. Like, it's all kind of like dense, heavy comfort food, which you need that stuff. But I think it's very important to have bright, colorful food options in the mix. So for instance, extremely easy to make your own homemade cranberry sauce with cranberries and oranges and sugar. Boom, blender, done. And now you have this really nice, bright side dish. A good salad with a bright, like vinegary dressing. Great option. One of the favorites in our house is a spicy sweet potato recipe. Probably the biggest hit of all of the side dishes that we've ever made for Thanksgiving. Because always you get the sweet potatoes and it's just like marshmallows. Gross. Too much. But the spicy, it makes it really nice because you get the sweet and you get the spicy and it's like something very different, right? Spicy is not something you associate with Thanksgiving food. So I just want to change it up a little bit, you know? While preserving the classics, you have to have the stuffing and all that.
So I ended up signing up. I was going to make both roasted potatoes and sweet potatoes, which I usually when I roast either of those things, I actually use pretty much the same process. And I will either season them with like garlic and rosemary, or I'll do like a more paprika, more of a kick, you know, to it. And I was thinking about doing that paprika chili powder forward dish, and like that might add some at least brightness of flavor. But now you're talking about color, so I think I might just like bring Sour Patch Kids, Nerds candy rope, right? Nerds gummy clusters. That's what the people
just
want.
Just a bowl of Nerds clusters on the table. Sprinkle a little on your mashed potatoes. People do love a Nerds cluster.
They really
Even
do. I mean, I'm the candy man around Ultiworld, and people still are asking me about them.
I am still upset that Nerds defeated Kit Kat in the candy bracket at Stanford Invite in whatever, like 2019. That was not right. Actually, that might have been 2020 because I think it was the one right before COVID.
I'm pretty sure I have that bracket still in my phone written down. So
okay,
I can
Kit
give
Kat
you the
losing
full
to Nerds
breakdown.
Is one of the worst decisions made by Ultiworld associated people of all time. I cannot believe it. It's a stunning. And we're not talking about Nerds rope or Nerds clusters. Just regular Nerds. Terrible. Well,
we're going to talk about some more Ultiworld decisions on the show today. I don't think any will draw the same ire from you that one did.
Well, we're going to get into it. Yes, our Ultiworld Player Awards. The ballots have been rolling in. We've been announcing the awards all week. All Club is out, and a great year for Club Ultimate and some really impressive performances. But I think before we get to that, Keith, I want to talk a little bit about some college Ultimate stuff that's going on, because we're in the college fall right now. Classic City Classic, which is kind of the big tentpole event in the men's division, and an ever increasingly more interesting women's division is taking place this coming weekend. We will have live coverage of CCC for all Ultiworld Standard and All Access subscribers. So make sure you get your subscription and tune in to what's going to be an extremely competitive tournament this year. On the men's side, I mean, this is a fantastic field. We've got UNC, Vermont, Brown, Pittsburgh, Texas, Colorado, Georgia, and Michigan as your top 8 seeds. And I mean, I think the most notable thing, Keith, some of these teams that typically went to Missouri Loves Company, like Texas and Colorado, are coming out to the East Coast. And so like this feels like mini nationals almost for a preseason tournament. These are like the best teams in the country that are all going to play this weekend.
This field is like probably only slightly below the general talent level at nationals. I mean, the teams I think are in the back ends of these pools are going to be roughly equivalent to the back end pools at nationals. I mean, it's definitely a high level tournament. It's great to see these teams traveling out. I think it's a little messed up that South Carolina is denoted as USC here. Not because I want to get into an argument about which USC should be which USC, but now that you got teams coming from west of the Mississippi, you can't trust that they're going to know which USC that's going to be. So it's confusing for them. You got to put South Carolina there, I think. But regardless, it definitely an exciting tournament field, and looking forward to getting some film on some of these teams, especially, you know, we got the hype rookies. We got probably the best, most talented women's division tournament out of the way already with Blue Ridge Finale. So we'll probably talk a little bit about that too, but This is definitely shaping up to be a nice CCC, and being down there in Athens and, standing on the parking deck. We've both done that. Being on the sidelines of an actual fall tournament, seeing the kids get excited again. I mean, I actually was briefly, my wife and son and I went out to watch a little bit of UConn play down the road from us. So I actually have been at a college tournament without coaching this season. So I've seen a little college ultimate myself. I see the rosters popping up on Instagram. It's like, it's a weird time of year.
Well, I we got a lot to live up to, but I think this has a chance to be one of the best college seasons for a while. We're at the peak of sixth year eligibility. And so the combination of fifth and sixth years, I mean, basically all of the star players from last year are back. Like when you look across both divisions, there's a few, right? Alex Barnett is gone from UNC. Ella Ukes has gone as well. But, Khalil Phillips and Stacey Gaskell are back for Colorado. UBC women's team, full lineup is back. Calvin Brown is still at SLO. Henry Ing is still at Pittsburgh. Jacques Nissen and Leo Gordon are back for Brown. The Colorado team is basically the same team it was last year. And Tobias Brooks is coming into that program. The combination of really high quality rookie class and almost no notable graduations from top players means we're going to have extremely good teams this year. And of course, the question is, can anybody top UNC after their dominant run over the last 3 years? I don't know, but it's the best chance for teams to maybe find an upset for at least the next couple of years, given the quality of some of the top players.
Oh, I guess
Brown almost beat UNC men last year in quarters. It was close.
I guess you're not in the Discord, huh, Charlie? Because maybe you didn't hear the UNC Pleiades lost already. They already took a L. The win streak is over. Who'd they lose to? Themselves. They lost to their own alumni. Which it's nice. It's nice. They're just like us. That's what every other college team could think. They're just like us. Yes, they seem invincible on the field, but they still lose to their alumni, and all is right in the universe.
Well, I want to shout out to Dan Ukes, who's got the Pleiades win streak record books being kept right now. Their last official sanctioned loss, actually, I think it's their first loss of any kind against another college team, was February 9th, 2020. So it's coming up on 4 years since they last lost. They've won 126 games in a row. Remember, they actually beat the Philly Surge in the PUL last year as well. Or that was earlier last college season, April 2023. But I mean, this run is just remarkable, Keith. I would bet, though, what odds would you give me on a UNC Pleiades loss at any point this season?
That they lose
any game. That they do not finish the season undefeated.
I honestly, I'd be in the minuses. I think I'd say like minus 180 or something like that.
That they go undefeated?
No, that they lose a game.
Okay.
I think them continuing the run is like pretty ridiculous.
I mean, if you're going to give me so what do I get on them being undefeated? Plus 180?
I mean, I guess plus 180 or whatever. Maybe I juice you.
Well, I didn't think I was going to get this number, so I'll go ahead and take that. I'll take plus 180 that they go undefeated. I actually do think they're probably going to lose a game this year, but if you're going to give me almost 2-1 on them going undefeated when they're only going to play 5 or 6 games that they might actually lose, I'll take that.
Fair.
But it's not, they're not as deep, and they're also not refilling from the bottom quite as well as they have in the past couple of years. But Bella Russell is joining the team. She's going to be extremely good. I'm sure with Don Colton leading the way, they're still going to be a great team and the title favorite until further notice. But I don't know, Keith. I think they might take an L this year.
It'll be an interesting thing to track. It's been quite a win streak. Somebody suggested there should be just it has UNC lost website. It's just www.haspleiadeslost.com or whatever. It's just a big no until it happens. You just check there. Get your news there.
I think we should make that site.
or at least
Has,
like an
has
account.
Pleiades lost.ultiworld.com.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, Orion, let's do it. So yeah, I mean, let's talk a little bit more about CCC. When you look at these top teams, like who's even the favorite here? Is it UNC? They don't always necessarily win this tournament. They're not really focusing on playing their absolute best ultimate at this time of year.
No, I think that we often see some of the top teams, take L's at CCC. So it feels a little random to try and figure out where those are going to come from. But we've seen those kinds of results. We've seen Pittsburgh lose to Emory and stuff. That's on the table. So it feels a little random though to try and figure out like how those losses are going to play out. So you look at teams that have a lot of talent returning, your Vermonts, your Georgias, your Browns, teams that have a lot of like structure in place. I think Colorado is probably going to be in a position to do really well. I think you could put all those teams up there with UNC and Pitt. But it should be, it's like, I would not feel comfortable betting on this tournament at all. I mean, it's the fall, it's early. You don't know how teams are going to approach things. But we're also like far enough into the fall that teams are going to be trying to execute stuff. They're not just coming out here and like being like, let's just run and see what happens. Like there's going to be some stuff in place. And given all the experience that these teams have, you're not starting from zero. This isn't your average college team. Like, okay, we got to reset. We got to start teaching the basics of vertical stack or whatever. Most of the rookies on these teams are going to be people who've already played Ultimate for like 3 or 4 years. They're going to be way more advanced than that. So I think that the team, whatever teams you see that have that going on, that's where you're going to see the teams that are most successful in the fall.
I'm going to take Colorado.
2 or 3 hero ball guys.
Yeah, I'm going to take Colorado. I mean, I think this
Fair.
is a team that needs to come out and start looking to be polished early. And how are they going to get Brooks involved? I assume he'll be on their offense. Got to think. And Landisman out hurt. How does that affect them? I mean, but you can definitely win this tournament without having like everybody locked in. I mean, Pittsburgh won this tournament last year and they weren't the deepest team, but great top end. Colorado has that. But I mean, their matchup against Brown and pool play is going to be fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
I'm going to take Georgia.
Wow.
Nice mix of vets, young guys, home cooking. So a little something extra to play for. Want to play well in front of the home fans. So I'm going to take Georgia. I think Vermont. Like I wouldn't be surprised if there's no Declan Kervick. I think they can be susceptible. That can help put Georgia in a stronger position. So I'm taking Georgia.
Okay. On the women's side, Georgia's the 1 seed, UCF the 2, FSU the 3, Florida the 4. Georgia's going to be pretty darn good this year, Keith.
They should be. I mean, Quincy Booth was the second runner-up for Rookie of the Year, much to the chagrin of some of her teammates on Twitter. So she had just had an amazing club season as well. All reports are that she's like ready to be a superstar. So I expect domination from her. Fiona Cashin's back for them. They are definitely going to be the favorites in the Southeast coming into the season. And that's given that this field is almost entirely teams from that region. I mean, you're really going to have a pecking order established right away because you've got Florida in their pool. You've got Florida State in the next pool over, Georgia Tech in the next pool over, Emory. Like these are basically the heavy hitters in the Southeast. So you're going to find out what Georgia's made of and what their standing is in the region. And we've known them to be one of the best teams in the region. So this is just a starting point for them. It's really about what can they do nationally because that's been the speed bump.
Keith, what else has happened this fall so far that you want to highlight as we get ready for what's basically the last competitive weekend of College Ultimate before we wait for the season to start in January?
Well, the other big tournament I guess to talk about in the women's division is Blue Ridge. We talked about the UNC win streak. I mean, they went undefeated at Blue Ridge. But in the field, NC State, Ohio State, Pittsburgh, Michigan, Virginia. So good crop of teams. They beat Pittsburgh in the final 13-9. They beat Michigan in semis 15-5. Pittsburgh beat NC State in the other semi 12-8. and beat Virginia on Universe in quarters. Virginia, a team that they've long been one of the strongest teams in the AC after UNC. So I think that's a nice win and maybe a little bit disappointing start to the fall. Virginia also lost to Ohio State, but that's probably the most notable results coming out of the fall in the women's division. Although we did just hear at a little tournament, New York Minute, Cornell beats SUNY Binghamton 14-3 in the final. That is a big time loss for the team that's won the Metro East 3 years in a row and still has Jolie Krebs. So, it's everything should be taken with those normal fall grades of salt. But yeah, that's a big loss.
Monster. I mean, Cornell should be pretty good. Question is how good. And I'm not going to try to make too much of this game. Who knows? Like, Jolie Krebs might not have been playing.
But low key, Metro. I'm very intrigued by the Metro East this year.
Oh yeah.
I think Yale's going to be full of revenge after last year's
tough.
The way that their season ended. They're gonna be gunning for Binghamton. Looks like Cornell's having an up year. I think UConn's going to be in a strong position this year. I think that the Metro East is going to be really competitive at the top. I think you're going to have a lot of fight for stuff there, and I think New England's also shaping up to be pretty competitive. We've seen results from like Lobster Pot. There was a couple different tourneys this weekend. So Tufts and Northeastern, both they're off to strong starts to the year. So I think that the New England region is also going to be pretty competitive. Brown, another team to watch out for. Rita Fetter could be back with them, hopefully in the future as well. So I think the Metro East, the Metro East and Northeast are both in for potentially good years, at least competitive years. I don't know how they'll stack up nationally. That's always the question mark.
Well, lots more college content to come. 12 Days of College Ultimate is right around the corner in December. And we're going to break down more of what's going on with the rookie classes from around the country. Some very good rookie classes coming into some programs.
We're going to get a big update. We're going to get a big update on that because the U20 tryouts are happening basically now. We're like in the middle between the East and West tryouts. East tryouts were this past weekend. West tryouts are this upcoming weekend. So the U20 teams will get announced. Probably not. What do you think? Like 3 weeks from now, something like that. 2 weeks from now. So we'll get those, and that obviously is going to inform how you review these recruiting classes. But if you want a preview of what I understand from recruiting, Charlie, it's mostly the rich get richer.
Yeah, but the rich change. Like in the women's division, Washington and they're not always getting the biggest class, but like they have one of the best this year. Oregon men are back up in a major way. That team's going to be very nasty in like 1 or 2 years. They'll be good this year. I don't know how good. But it feels like, for instance, Cal Poly slow. Maybe they're starting to lose their grip on the West Coast in the men's division. They might still be the best team this year, because Calvin Brown's back. But like when he graduates, what's going to happen there? I think Oregon and Colorado have really started to take up a lot more of the top recruits out west.
Yeah, but the team that's gobbling up recruits from everybody is Vermont.
Oh my God.
That Vermont women's team is absolutely stacked. It's crazy that the talent that they keep bringing in. So it feels like there's going to be a while till we're out of Vermont being one of the elite programs. And it's kind of just like what each team is just stacking up more resources. It's like, how much harder can we make this for UNC? Like, what if we add a little bit of this? Can we finally get one over on UNC? And it really looked like that when we were talking about Colorado Quandary getting Rachel Chang, which is no longer the case. I think they're going to Santa Cruz now. But
I'm very intrigued by that.
I know nothing about the inside of that.
Can she carry Santa Cruz to becoming a nationals team? I mean, I think she genuinely might be good enough to do that.
I mean, they're one of the best players I've seen at this age in a long time. Like, they're really good. So yes, I think that kind of player tends to act as like a center point for program growth. Like, other people get better playing with them. Other good players want to play with them. your program learns new things by having this elite level player like come in and say, this is how we should do stuff. Like it's more than just what an individual player like that brings to the field. So Rachel Chang's going to be a big difference maker there. Acacia Hans transferring to Oregon. Like Oregon's got a great recruiting class too. So I don't know how we got sidetracked in like getting into the details of this stuff. We'll get more into this later on in the year, I think.
Well, lots more to come on rookie classes a little bit later in the year as we get ready for the 2024 college season. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're talking all club and club awards. Stay with us. It's a Deep Look. Welcome back to Deep Look. Time to take a look at our 2023 Ultiworld Player Awards for the club division. Always a great exercise, Keith, and chance for us to run down the big awards of the year. I'm just going to read off the top line winners. Player of the Year, men's division, Christian Boxley for Truck Stop. Mixed division, Jade McLaughlin for Shame. Women's division, Claire Trope for Scandal. Staying in the women's division, Offensive Player of the Year, Valeria Cardenas, playing with Molly Brown, of course. Defensive Player of the Year, Cammie Groom, who just continues to pop up on these awards lists. And Caroline Tornquist, the Breakout Player of the Year for Brute Squad. In the mixed division, Offensive Player of the Year, Travis Dunn, playing for Lawless. What a come up he had. Just an amazing nationals. And Connor Belfield, BFG, Defensive Player of the Year. Breakout Player of the Year, Rory Veldman, playing for Shame. And in the men's division, Offensive Player of the Year, Joe White for Machine. What a fantastic year he had. Troy Holland, Defensive Player of the Year, playing for Truck Stop. And Simon Carapella for Boston Dig is your Breakout Player of the Year. Keith, would love your overall thoughts on all these top line awards and the players that took them down.
Another tough year voting. I'd say it every year. I think it actually feels like it gets harder every year. But a great group of players. There's no award that I was like, wow, I feel like this person like didn't really deserve this or whatever. It's wild when I look at having 2 truck stop defenders as the top spot in Deepody. Like what? Remember when it was like, oh, this team has the perfect offense, but where's the defense? Let me tell you, they very nearly took the entire podium. Like they had Thomas Edmonds in the conversation to take that third spot. And it was only through tiebreakers. We had to have a tiebreaker vote, and he didn't come out on top of that. But nearly truck stop swept Deepody, which to me was one of the things that stood out the most. I was shocked from how people perceive this truck team not too long ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think, their offense wasn't quite as good as it was last year in 2023. And yet, they maintained the same level and, of course, went on to win the title. You got to give credit to those guys for disrupting opposing offenses. And, at the highest level of the men's division, there aren't a lot of turnovers. You're not going to get a lot of breaks. If the weather is calm and conditions are good, a top level offense is only going to get broken 1, 2, 3 times a game max. So when you get those 2 or 3 breaks and then your offense doesn't give up those breaks, then say you win a national championship. I mean, look at that. Look at the way Truck, I mean, they played great on both sides of the disc in the final, but Machine really struggled to take the disc from them, and Truck got their chances.
And I mean, you can't argue with the way that Troy Holland, who's I think their primary stopper, performed. It's not like my ballot was all that different from what ended up happening. I mean, AJ Merriman had an awesome defensive season. I know there's all the drama about the strip or whatever, but it was another example of how his defensive positioning put him in position to make plays. Like, even if it wasn't a strip or whatever, the fact that he was close enough to make that play is a credit to him as a defender. And there were plenty of other blocks along the way where it showed that he was an intelligent poacher and that was a key part of his game. I had him 4th on my Deepody ballot. I had second runner-up John Randolph, second on my ballot, and I also had like Conrad Schluer and Cody Spicer on my ballot too. So definitely a tough one. Another thing that really jumped out interesting to me and was pointed out on Twitter, the U.S. swept out of the Offensive Player of the Year in the women's division. Your winners, Valeria Cardenas, Yina Cartagena, and Lev Kovalchuk finish in the runner-up slots. So not only was not a single American voted for OPODI, no American player has won the OPODI in the women's division since 2018 when Robin Fennig was Robin Wiseman on Heist. Like, that's how long it's been. Now that to be fair, that's two Canadians between here and there with Catherine Menzies and Lauren Kimura, but no American player has won OPODI since 2018 through 4 seasons. What do you make of this? America stinks in offense?
It is an interesting fact, but I think when you look at PODI, you see American this year, Colombian last year, Valeria won it in 22. Lindsay Sue, American, won it in 2021. Robin Fennig won it in 2019. Carolyn Finney won it in 2018. Claire Chastain won in 2017. So it's not like, and I think if you take those PODIs and you say they're not allowed to be PODI, how many of them win Offensive Player of the Year? Probably most of them. So I don't necessarily think there's anything here. I think that to me, the fact that we see a fully international podium this year in that award just speaks to the quality of international players right now. I was thinking about this earlier today, that the top level, the top, let's say 5 to 10% of players in Europe are at least equal to what the top 5% of American players are right now. Now, there's no question that, depth-wise, the U.S. is going to just obliterate everybody for a long time. The 20th player on an American team at a Worlds is almost invariably going to be better than the 20th player on any other country's team. But at the top tier, I mean, I was incredibly impressed with the players that we saw from, even ones who were sort of established, like Valeria, for instance, who finished second in the PODI award this year, by the way. Wins OPODI. Lev Kovalchuk was incredible. Gina Cartagena has continued to be incredible. And you can go on down the list, of players who have been super impressive. Manu, I guess Lena Troutman didn't end up making an all-club team, but she could have. She definitely could have. She's probably an unofficial third teamer, right, Keith?
I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I think that she's definitely in that conversation. And she was in conversation for DPODI as well. There was definitely some DPODI votes thrown her way.
But looking at Beach too, right? Beach Worlds. We see some of these, Elliot Bonet, like these top players are looking to be just as good at the top end of the game as any of their American counterparts. And I think there have been a couple of players like that in the past. It feels like things are changing in this front.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's mostly just a sign that there are very talented players coming over to play in the US, in particular in the women's division. We've seen a lot of really elite talent travel here. And I think we've talked about this a little bit, but we expect that to continue. But I do find it a bit of a fascinating development.
There's a bit of a selection bias, right? In top level teams, taking international players who aren't going to go to practice at all. Like, those players by definition are so good that they're getting a spot on these teams. So when you're talking about the international presence of players, like, these are the world's best players from outside the US who are coming to play in the USAU club division. So it's no surprise to me that they're popping up on these awards.
Now, are there any of these awards that you feel like you disagree with? Is there anybody you would have liked to see selected instead of the winners?
I got to look across the divisions. I'm actually, I think my biggest quibble is probably in Defensive Player of the Year in the men's division, just starting with men's, just because I think it was a really difficult year to really pick somebody out and elevate them above everyone else. And I think that's reflected in the voting, which was fairly flat and fairly even. Troy Holland is well deserving. I mean, he's had a great 2 years. But, I don't necessarily know that he's the first name that comes to mind for me when I think about like who should have won the award. But on the other hand, I don't necessarily know that there's a clear and obvious front runner in my mind either. So there's a lot of guys that I think could have won that. I mean, Jean Randolph for sure. Cody Spicer is unsurprisingly still a fantastic defender. We saw great stuff from Antoine for Pony, but I don't necessarily quibble, just that I think it's like not super obvious. Whereas, for instance, Joe White winning Offensive Player of the Year, to me, that was just so clear. Like I didn't really consider anybody else for that spot. Let's look at the other divisions. I'm pretty much in agreement on the mixed awards. I think I had Krebs as the top in my B pody, but Veldman's a great choice. And then in the women's division, my big thing about the women's division is that right now I'm finding it hard to assess, and we had a big conversation about this internally, like how do you assign offensive and defensive awards when there's a lot of top teams are not running strict lines? I think it makes it really difficult because you're having players play half their points as defensive points and half as O, and they're good players that are getting blocks and scoring. Like look at Cammie Groom. How do you choose? I think it's just like a lot less clear in terms of assigning value to some of those players and where they really make the most impact.
That's interesting insight. We actually, folks, had to add basically an additional rule this year, which is that you can't appear on multiple of the offensive, defensive, or breakout player of the year podiums. Cammie Groom was both offensive and defensive player of the year vote getter. And the team decided that it was valuable to continue to recognize more players for their successes this season and said, okay, we're going to put Groom in whichever one of these that she slotted the highest, which was defensive player of the year. Now she was also second runner up for player of the year. So, there's recognition that Cammie Groom is a complete player and a big difference maker in the division beyond just her defense. But worth noting that change was instituted, but I do think that it's no surprise that came up in the women's division first and foremost, because you're saying there are fewer O and D lines. There are more elite teams that are just saying like, we're just going to run out units of different groups of players and not tether them to offense or defense or make them offensively focused or defensive players. Like let's make a well-rounded deep teams. I feel like Fury is the trendsetter in this part, and we've jokingly called it the Fury effect of how difficult it can be to find them spots for individual showcasing and awards. That's continued to be a problem. But if the whole division is going to do it, it's just going to make it even harder for us to figure out where people should be in these awards. I'm not sure. I'm not advocating for everybody to do this, but I guess if it helps you get the wins, there's no better way to get awards podiums than getting big W's, as you can see from Brute Squad and Scandal's performances in the award podium situation.
Where's your biggest quibbles, Keith?
My biggest quibbles, honestly, I still think my biggest quibbles probably with All Club. I don't know how Orion Cable doesn't make an All Club team. Like, what? Come on. But
I was surprised at how many truck guys ended up on All Club.
Yeah, they had so many good players, and so I didn't know if that was going to split up their voting, like if they were going to have a harder time actually getting in there because there were so many players that people like. Who do you vote for from that O line, right? Like, who do you make at the top of that?
Everybody got votes. I mean, and maybe deservedly so. I mean, Tyler Monroe is back-to-back All Clubs now. He was first team last year. He gets a second team spot this year. I think one of the truck guys pointed out that this is the first year in a long time that the champion for the season didn't have at least two players on the first team All Club, because only Christian Boxley from Truck was first team. I'm surprised by that because I personally think Johnny Malks absolutely deserved a spot on the first team, but I get it. They end up with 3 on the second team, and the margins are often quite thin at the borderline there between, spots 4 through 10. are pretty close together a lot of the time. So yeah, I mean, is half the all club team deserving to be truck? Like, you end up with Rowan, Monroe, Malks, and then Boxley on the first team. And they get the top 2 defensive players on the podium as well. And neither of those guys makes an all club team. People talk a lot about that. Defensive players not ending up on all club. I wrote about that in the mailbag. I mean, I think it makes sense. It's like Ultimate's an offensive game, Keith.
Yeah, I feel like I can rant about that. Like, people are like, oh, you don't recognize defense enough. I hear this all the time. So not even from some of the staff who are like, some of the staff members like really like defense. It's just like your overall output ability to impact the game is decreased by being on defense in Elite Club Ultimate. You just like you get the disc less. You get fewer touches. Like I don't know. It's pretty simple math. Like it limits your ability to impact the game. You spend most of the game getting scored on. Like I don't know. I get that breaks are required to win. Turnovers are important, but defense matters. It definitely matters. I'm not saying that it doesn't. I'm not saying you don't need a good defense to win. But if you're just like trying to compute a player's overall impact on the game, like it's just people are putting their most impactful players on O-line. Like there's a reason for that. The other thing to rant about briefly is breakout player of the year. I need people to understand that we have basically a soft age cap in club. It's supposed to be an award that recognizes people who are going to be stars in the division for like the next few years. So every year there's somebody who's like, how did this person get snubbed? And that person is 31 years old or whatever. And that is the answer. It is, I'm sure there are people who feel that's wrong or that we should have a separate award for older players. We've talked about that. We haven't really figured out how to make that make sense. I think I am going to try and do it for our unofficial snubs article though. So subscribers look forward to that. I think we are going to I'm going to try and do breakout player of the year for like the older age group. But yeah, it's just like, the same thing happens every year. So maybe it's my fault. Maybe I'm not doing a good job clarifying what the award is about, but we're always looking to change the awards. I mean, there's talk about changes to the numbers and stuff like that. I've considered like, should we do a third team? There's so many good players. Like I easily could put together a third team of players that I felt were worthy of like having their own write-ups, like when I look at the players who didn't make all club across all these divisions, it's like, there are a lot of really good players. Maji Ferreira or Sarah Jacobson in mixed, or I mentioned Orion Cable in men's. How about Sam Little? He had an awesome year. Hayden Austin Nab, like, that was a snub.
He was on my second team ballot.
Yeah, I had him on mine too. So we take the time to actually like do a third team. Everybody submits 21 players to be submitted so that we have some room on the margins. If there's, we don't want the cutoff to be 14, because then if you're the 15th best player on someone's vote, you get the same as if you're the 700th best player in club. So we want to account for that, but it makes it, every time we do this exercise, I'm like, wow, I really could fill up a third team with good players. We're shout out Liam Haberfield, who was my last player in to get a vote on my third team. Those will also be in our subs and superlatives, but it's always a fun exercise to go through and do this. And another thing that jumped out to me from looking at these is like, we're starting to build up a long enough record of doing this that like you can kind of see the progression of some players' careers. And someone was talking about like, look at Opie Payne and Chris Kotcher, like what they've done through the Ulti-World era, as it were. And Chris Kotcher has been an all-club first-team player for 6 consecutive years.
It's remarkable.
That's unbelievable. Opie Payne has been an all-club selection for 6 years as well. Like, these are players who maybe everybody else realized it. I didn't know that everybody realized it, but these players are going to be like all-time great players, right? These are, I don't know if people are going to like say Chris Kotcher was the greatest player to ever do it, but when people talk about great players from this era, Chris Kotcher and Opie Payne are going to be the kinds of players that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. What's interesting is that Opie Payne, she's She got her first all-club team the first year we made an all-club team back in 2013. She made it again in 14. This is when she was playing for Scandal. She missed in 2015. Then she was back on the second team in 2016. Then she missed it the next 3 years, even though she won Defensive Player of the Year in 2019 playing for Fury. Now, it's kind of funny to me that the year she won D Pody, she didn't make all club, but then has now made all club 3 years in a row.
Fury effect. It's the Fury effect. It can mask you. I mean, obviously she's still on Fury, but yeah, you can end up with some oddities like that. I mean, Cammie Groom's resume is absolutely ridiculous. Are we Cammie Groom's biggest fan? Like, what? Or is everybody recognized? I mean, just like 5 podium appearances. 5.
8 of 10 first team all club appearances.
And 1 second team appearance.
She's a second team appearance.
As long as we've been doing this award, 2014 is the only year which Cammie Groom was not an all club selection. It's ridiculous. We do this.
Here's what's insane. You want to know what's insane? Is that she still hasn't been on a World Games team. Right? I mean, I know she's been like the short list twice. Is there something about her game that like just doesn't quite set up well for the coaches of the World Games team? Because I'm struggling to see what the problem is. Like, what, you don't like her throws enough? I mean, I'm sorry. Like, there's just no world in which I think that Carolyn Normile should have made it last time over Cammie Groom. I'm sorry. I find it shocking, especially in retrospect. But I mean, Cammie's just been fantastic. I'm sure it's frustrating for her to not have made one of those teams, because I think there's a very good case to be made that she's been the best women's division player of the last 10 years. Straight up. Who even else is in the conversation? Claire Chastain, and is that it? Carolyn Finney, maybe?
Yeah. Opie, I don't know. Like, it's a short list. I mean, Cammie won Pody in 2016 and then was the runner-up for Pody for 3 straight years after that. Like, I think Claire Chastain is the only other person who appeared on the podium twice in that same time period. Twice.
Well, I think it's especially amazing is that she's back up on top of that list again,
that's
right?
What I'm saying.
She's an all-club first team again, won D Pody, got a lot of O Pody votes, and finished 3rd in the Pody voting. I mean, she's got
10 years later.
She's Masters eligible, right? Didn't she just play Masters?
Yes.
She's over 30. It's incredible. Incredible what a run she's had. By the way, her sister, as many know, plays in the National Women's Soccer League. To me, this is like, Cammie Groom is basically like the closest we have to a truly elite tier athlete in the sport. Right? And this is what we've seen. Right? It's like, you can imagine if we got all players like that, right, with that level of athleticism, what it could be. And that's not to disparage the elite players that were playing Ultimate right now. Fantastic athletes, no doubt. But we're not talking about the absolute best of the best athletes that are playing in professional sports, right? If you took WNBA players and NBA players and, NFL players, like they would just absolutely dominate the sport within a year of starting.
Yeah. I mean, we talked to Owen about it, right? We asked him how long would it take the best athlete in DC professional sports to be the best player on truck stop. And he was like, basically the second they signed up when they got to practice, when they finished tying their cleats.
I'd like to shout out Robin, by the way. She got a couple of second teams back in 2013 and 2014 playing for Heist. Then when she played for Scandal, she won Player of the Year in 2019. She won Offensive Player of the Year for Heist in 2018. A couple of first team all club selections there. Then she moved over to the mixed division where she's won 3 straight all club first teams. She won Pody in 2022 and she was second runner up for Pody this year. What a run for Robin.
Yeah. And like that doesn't even touch on all the off the field contributions that she brings to the Ultimate community. Robin's a treasure and amazing player.
Mac Taylor. I'm just looking around for like people who have defined their divisions.
You've been sucked into the history of it all.
Sarah Meckstroth.
I love that this exists though now. There is like a record of who has been great in Ultimate. We don't have to just like, rely on a spotty few posts on RSD to tell us anymore.
It's true. It's pretty cool. Anything else on this, Keith?
No, happy to get feedback though from folks who have it. If you got feedback, so you want to submit your own, I always will say, if you're gonna complain that so and so got snubbed from the All Club team, you better tell me whose place they need to take. If they're coming up on the podium for an award, who are they cutting off? Talk your talk, but come with the receipts.
You got to. That's why it's hard.
It's
if we had unlimited spots, it would be easy.
It's way easier to say who got snubbed than it is to make your own list. I promise you. So I get that that's what we sign up for, but.
Well, that is going to do it for today's edition of Deep Look. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to have a little more college chatter in our subscriber bonus segment this week. We got to talk about this sixth year situation, Keith. It's getting a little ridiculous out there with the post-COVID extended eligibility, and I would like to talk about it. So join us there for Out the Back, and you can get it with any Ultiworld subscription. Just go to ultiworld.com/subscribe and get yourself a subscription today. For Keith Rayner, I'm Charlie Eisen saying so long, and we'll talk to you next week right here on Deep Look.